Everybody, TC Bradley, host of God Made Millionaire TV, the hottest show on television. And I've been waiting all week for you, yes you, to stop on by and watch our show. And what a show we've got lined up for you today. Waiting on set, we have Mr. Chad Burmeister. Chad is the CEO and founder of his new nonprofit organization, Living a Better Story. Chad and his team just recently launched a prayer app called 77 Pray, and today you'll get to learn more about it. So without any further ado, let's crack open the God Made Millionaire Bank Vault and let's get our show started. Chad, welcome to the show.
Man, it's so good to be here. Thanks for having me.
I have to tell you, I'm honored and privileged that you have agreed to come on our show today, and what an incredible story you have that led you to come on God Made Millionaire TV. Can you share that with our audience?
Well, before we start, I'd like to open with something that my grandfather always used to pray every day, and that is, "This is the day the Lord has made. Let us rejoice and be glad in it." And that's how he started every single one of his days. So I believe that I was called here today to share to the world that the fastest way to get to God's miracles is to pray for them and ask God for a miracle. And so I am so excited to share with you how this app came about that we just launched about a couple weeks ago. And it all starts with a phone call that I received. So February 17th, ring, ring. I'm with my wife at a dinner, and it's my son. And he says, "Dad, I've been in an accident." And I thought, was it a car accident? And he said, no, it's a cooking accident. My face and hands are badly burned. Send an ambulance. Imagine if that was your son or daughter and you got that phone call. Is he going to be okay? Can he see? Did it burn his eyes? Like, what's going to happen? So my wife raced to where he was at his apartment. Turns out it was a grease fire. He was cooking on a stove. And so, public service announcement for anybody watching this, this is important to my son. If you're cooking and you have a grease fire, do not put it underwater. So it was very important that he share that with everybody who's watching. Have a plan, right? You put a pan over it, Google it, figure it out.
What's the first reaction that you think? That's
right.
what I would think.
If I was a 20-year-old boy, what am I going to do? I'm going to put it under the water.
Right.
Right? So that's what he did, and it just blew up. So what do a lot of people do? You know, God, why us? We turn to faith immediately. So my wife rushes to the ambulance. I go to the burn center, and I wait and I wait and I wait for 3 hours. And I prayed the entire time, and I posted on LinkedIn, which I have 20,000 followers, and I said, "Hey, can you please pray for my son?" And people prayed. Like, we had 20,000 people who chimed in. It got to one of the big airlines, to all the flight attendants, the pilots. So all these people were saying, "Hey, we're praying for your son." And we finally get to see him. And it went from bad to worse over a 7-day period, to the point where the day before surgery, TC, I literally thought his nose was going to fall off. I was like, you know, it just drops your jaw. Like, what's going to happen next? But we prayed, and my mom stayed up the entire night and prayed. Apparently, she told me later. I prayed more than you could believe, and I said, "God, I'm asking you for a miracle. I need a miracle. Help my son to where the only way that we could describe it is a miracle." And so he gets through the surgery. They wrap him in gauze. He's in the hospital for a week. And when they started taking the gauze off, you know, you start to see his smile come back through, and it was a miracle. He had a couple little red marks, nose completely healed, like you want to reach out and touch it. And so I witnessed a miracle. And so that's what's neat, is I've realized that my whole life I had a grandfather who taught me how to believe and taught me that prayer works. Not everybody has that luxury. Not everybody has it. Well, I had the aptitude, and that's why we launched this app called 77 Pray that I'm excited to share with your audience.
Wonderful. You know, what an incredible story. And I can tell you, being placed personally in a situation when I had my sudden cardiac arrest and was clinically dead for 1.5 to 2 minutes, social media, it went out on social media and people prayed for me. And it seems so simplistic. It really does, that people prayed for you. But Chad, I have to tell you that I felt in that hospital room, I felt those prayers.
Mm-hmm.
I felt those prayers. And I think that we can be so busy nowadays and so connected with everybody, but yet so disconnected from the source. Would you agree with that?
100%. The devil will use drift against you. And so you think you're on target, but we drift. And so if you can remind yourself, pray in the morning, read a Bible verse, and then act according to what God's talked to you about. And then when you go to bed at night, bookend your day with another prayer. Very simple. Takes you less than a few minutes here or there, right? We go work out, go to the gym and get in physical shape. We have mental toughness apps, 75 Hard. I accomplished that. It was amazing. 2 workouts a day, drink a gallon of water, can't drink alcohol for 75 days. That's a big reason why I launched 77 Pray. And when you can bookend your day with a prayer in the morning and a prayer at night, and then when you face difficult things in life, you post a prayer and it gets crowdsourced and you know that there's hundreds of people that are praying for you and they actually show you through the app that you just got prayed for, it's so powerful.
Well, listen, I want to dive deeper on your app, the 77 Pray app. Now, Chad, you're an incredibly accomplished businessman, very successful businessman. Can you tell me a little bit about your background in that area?
Well, sure. I've been in sales since I was 18 years old, probably 10 years old. And I, in fact, recently wrote a book called Artificial Intelligence in Sales. And I interviewed over 150 people by now, CEOs, founders, AI executives, and it's a very interesting book. I've been selling for a lot of years. God, over the last 2 years, has really given me a vision. Hey, I've given you these skills to be a really good sales leader. Now I need you to use those sales skills for something else. And I've now launched a 501c3 called Living a Better Story. And our entire mission, if you've ever seen the show The Chosen, in the very opening credits, it shows gray fish swimming around in a circle. And then all of a sudden, one blue fish goes swimming the other direction. And then the one blue fish becomes 2 blue fish. And then the 2 become 4, and the 4, and so on and so forth. By the time that part of the scene cuts, it's 13 fish. Jesus and his 12 disciples. So now my mission for the second half of life is to help turn gray fish blue.
Right. Talk about that transition from the tech, because you've been accomplished in the technology space.
Yeah, I've been in technology for a lot of years, yes.
And the driving force for the praying app, the 77 Pray app, was that the incident with your son?
Yeah. When you run into a traumatic event like that, and I'd rather be in his position than have him in that position, right? I'd trade places with him in a minute. So when Brendon goes through this, and the day after he got into the hospital, and he said, "Dad, I'm glad this happened to me." I said, "What are you talking about? You're glad this happened to you?" He goes, "Because now it doesn't happen to anybody else in our family." That makes a dad proud. That's why I'm here today, to make sure that, as we talked about a little bit ago, that people have a plan. If there's ever a grease fire, don't put water on it.
Right.
And then have a plan for your prayer, right? You can connect directly to God. It doesn't cost you anything. And
have you always been a man of prayer? Have you always been a man of prayer?
From the time I was a kid, I've always prayed. So when I was in a head-on collision, I prayed. I turned to God and I said, "God," my friend, we were driving, we were in a head-on collision. He was plucked from the car and thrown about 20 feet. It was a convertible. And so I prayed for a miracle that day. So I've always prayed. And thank God he listens.
You know, JL, I believe that God is going to raise up 1,000 God Made Millionaires at the least through our God Made Millionaire movement, with what we're doing, with our show, with our coaching services, with everything that we're doing at God Made Millionaire. But people need support along the way. So that's why we've created the God Made Millionaire Inner Circle.
Right. God Made Millionaire Inner Circle is where you get the opportunity to get coaching and training by myself and T.C. Bradley. I've been mentored by T.C. Bradley for over 16 years, and I saw the need for having a coach. For 16 years, there's times where I procrastinated, there's times where I felt unmotivated and discouraged, and TC was there right by my side to give me the coaching and the mentoring that I needed to step up. And now it's your turn to get that same mentoring and coaching as well with the God Made Millionaire Inner Circle.
You know, JL, that's the number one request that we get is people want coaching, but they want affordable coaching.
Right, and the God Made Millionaire Inner Circle will give them just that. And not only that, but the God Made Millionaire Inner Circle is very interactive. So it's not something where you just listen to us pontificate. You're actually going to get in the trenches with us, and we're going to put you on the hot seat and be able to look at your business and coach you and mentor you through your purpose.
JL, what's pontificate mean? You use some big words. What does
They
that
know
mean?
what it means. They can Google it.
Hey, if you've been given a God-given dream, this is the place. If you're one of the 1,000 God-made millionaires that God is raising up in this season, you need to be a part of the God-made Millionaire Inner Circle. How has that attitude, that habit of prayer, how did that influence your success in business? And I want to say this to the people listening at home, is that in business, there's different levels of success in business. And Chad, with your background, you're so accomplished. I mean, you are at the highest level in business. And yet you've got this passion, this mandate from God about prayer. I want to know, how did you integrate your passion and your belief and your commitment to prayer? How did that weave in and intersect with your business life? How did that influence it?
Well, I think as terrible as the COVID situation has been, I think what it did is it caused a lot of people to work out of their home offices. Well, when you're in my house, that's my house. I'm not at the office anymore, right? Now,
Right.
I've worked from home for a while, but if you think of these big corporations who say, hey, you can't do this, you can't do that, you're not allowed to pray at the water cooler with other employees. Well, now you're in my house. So I think the world has shifted a little bit over the last couple years, and now it's allowing prayer to come into the home. So I'm meeting with 12 to 15 business leaders every day. I have a podcast called Living a Better Story. I have a podcast called AI for Sales, business podcast, and the 501c3 podcast. And I get to talk to people about their faith, whether it's the business podcast or the Living a Better Story podcast. And it's been amazing. There's people that are on both sides of the aisle, and we all have the same beliefs, right? We all want the same thing. We want God to show up. We want God to lead the way. And I think I've talked to so many people over the last year and a half. Man, we got to go back to the Bible. We got to go back to what God's teachings were. And when you pray, you can connect, and He'll actually show up and listen to you. So I think that's what's changed for me, and I think that's what's changed for a lot of people around the world. If you're not praying every day, man, give it a try. What can it hurt?
Right. And what you've done is you've taken your skill set and your gifting in the tech space, and you applied it to God's work with an app called 77 Pray. Is that correct?
Yeah, so 77 Pray came out. I couldn't figure out what are we going to name this thing, right? So I presented in a group of 150 people. I shared my story of my son, and the first time I shared it, I broke down in tears on the stage. And a gentleman in the audience said, you know, why don't you call it 77? I was like, that's a cool, okay, that's a good idea, got it. Well, then I came up to him after the talk, and he said, yeah, 77 is Matthew 77. He goes, ask and you shall receive, knock and it will be opened unto you. So I called my wife and I said, hey, 77, what do you think of that? So she said, well, what about 77 Pray? I said, yeah, that's it. But 77 Pray, I think of it, in fact, many of our first subscribers call it Fitbit for faith.
Wow, I like that.
Fitbit for faith. So, every day you wake up at first thing in the morning, a little notification, hey, have you prayed yet? And guess what? The reminder is, this is the day that the Lord has made. Let us rejoice and be glad in it. Just like we opened up with today. And if you go into your day, guess what? You have 60 to 80,000 thoughts a day. That's the average human. And most people, more than half of those thoughts are negative. When you can bookend your day with prayer, guess what? You've just caused the next 10,000 thoughts of your day to be positive. So why would you not try to connect with God? Fitbit for faith. The second part is a prayer crowdsourcing. So I want to put out a prayer, and instead of just putting it out on Facebook, this is a private app that you can put your prayer out. When you go to pray for someone, there's a little button in the bottom that says Bible. And when you click that inside of the prayer and you search a word, love or whatever, faith, every single verse, within a split second, every verse in the Bible that has that word in it show up.
Wow.
So now think about AI in the sales motion. I've learned through all these talks that it augments human intelligence. So now using AI in the app, and you do this quick search, love. Well, now I've got a list of 800 different verses with the word love in it. And I go to share that with the person who just posted the prayer.
Talk about the first prayer request that was posted on 77 Pray.
So for a good 12 months, God was talking to me, whether it's in my sleep, through the Holy Spirit. Hey, this is the Bible verse we're going to read today. Noah starts showing up everywhere I go, to the point where someone said, you really ought to go see Noah's Ark encounter in Kentucky. Okay, sounds good. So I get on a plane, and it was amazing. If you haven't seen Noah's Ark encounter, go check it out. Well, the very first prayer that comes in on July 31st is for, guess, what do you think the name was?
Noah.
Noah. So there it is, right? My son was healed through the power of prayer. I had belief in God, and God healed my son. And now the first prayer is for Noah. Apparently there's 1 in 200 kids last year were named Noah. So pretty small chance that Noah's the first person to be prayed for. He's got pneumonia, then double pneumonia with COVID, and then all over a period of 7-8 days, he was on a decline to the point where it was 28 beats per minute. And they said, hey, we might need to put him on a ventilator. He was that close to being on a ventilator. And I called Rich, my business partner. I said, hey, Rich, we prayed for Brendon and he was healed. I said, if you would have asked me before that, I believe in God, but I always wondered, right, am I really going to be heard? And now I'm 100% sure. And Rich goes, hang on, I just heard God talk to me. I said, what are you talking about? God just talked to you? He goes, yeah, a low, deep voice right outside my door. And I said, Tammy doesn't have a low, deep voice. What are you talking about? That's his wife. He goes, no, not Tammy. I heard God talk through thunder. And I was like, okay. And I smiled, and I went about my day. And I called my mom. I said, hey, Mom, you're not going to believe it. And I told her the whole story I just told you. And my mom goes, you're not going to believe it. I had earmarked in my Bible a verse about God talking through the thunder. And I was like, you got to be kidding me. You can't make this stuff up. And she's like, yeah. And she started tearing up. 30 minutes later, you can't make this up. 2 hours before, he wasn't going to leave the hospital anytime soon. 30 minutes later, text comes through. You're not going to believe it. Noah's getting out of the hospital. He's going home. They don't even have to send him home with oxygen tanks.
Wow.
So the power of prayer, the power of belief, the power of asking other people to pray for someone, I can't promise you that when you pray, you're going to heal the person. Like, that's not a guarantee. It's in God's time. What I can promise you is, my prayer is your will be done. God, if you want it to be, then your will be done, not mine. And that's my prayer. When I go to bed at night, that's the other bookend. God, your will be done. What do you need me to do? I work for you now. And I've, in my podcast, 75 people I've talked to now on Living a Better Story. And there's 2 people who've said they work for God. And I'm like, and I met them both live because I said, how do I get to work for God?
Wow. Wow. You said something in that really stuck out to me. And it's, how would a man pray if he knew, or a woman pray if you actually knew your prayers were heard? I think we're living in a time and an age where you got the little fat man up on your shoulder going, that's a waste of time. And how do you even know your prayer is being answered?
Well, my friend John Guyton played for the CU Buffs, and he's a big speaker, and he said he calls that man on his shoulder Zertog. And he's like, hey, Zertog's an idiot. He lives in space somewhere, and I don't listen to Zertog. Look, I can tell you about 5 years ago, I got a phone call from someone that I didn't know, and he saw my post online and said, hey, Chad, what do I do? I'm about to lose my house, my family, my job. I said, have you ever prayed? I said, why don't you just pray and say, your will be done? I go, do that for about 20 to 30 days and see what happens. And it turns out now 60 days is what it takes to make it happen, right? They've done a little more study.
Oh,
It's
okay.
not 21, it's 60. So he did it. And he called me about 2 years ago and he said, Chad, you're not going to believe it. I'm a director of a company. I've got 3 employees. I didn't get kicked out of my house and I'm off drugs. And I said, that's because you prayed. Your will be done. It's really as simple as that.
Right.
You have to just give it to God and he'll take over.
So the folks listening at home right now, how do they get the app? And then walk us through what that setup would look like, how it operates for them.
Well, I want to tell you a Bible verse before I go there. Malachi 3:10 says, bring the whole tithe, your time, talent, and your treasures. I used to think of tithe as bring my 10% to church. My dad and my brother were really good at that. I've been hit or miss.
Right.
So I'm in overtime innings now going, okay, time, talent, treasures, I'm not going to stop at 10%. I'm going to give God 100%. And he says, if you give me the time, talent, treasures, I will open the floodgates of heaven to you. And he says, in one translation it says, test me on this, but you and I both know you're not supposed to test God. The real
Right.
translation, somebody said, is prove me on this, right? Just try it. Just give it a try. Prove it. I'll open the floodgates of heaven if you give me time, talent, treasures. So that's what I encourage everyone to do. Give God your time, talent, treasures. All he asks for is 10%. Give him 11. Round it up, right? You go to the store these days and you're leaving a tip and it says 20% on the button. Just give them 20 while you're at it, right? And it doesn't have to be cash. Just give them your time. Pray. So it's 77pray.com. You'll see a video about what I just shared with you today about my son and about what happened. And you'll also see, if you sign up for the app, you'll see the prayers that I talked about, right? We all can pray together. And also check out livingabetterstory.org. We're rolling out Living a Better Story nationwide, and we've already got at least a dozen people who have raised their hand and said, yeah, people in my neighborhood need to be living a better story. And it's complete your past, tell the truth about your current reality, live a better story. When you do those things, and we're going to help you do it through workbooks, through one of the best trainers in the world, Mr. Robert White, and we'll do that in people's homes all across America. And so if you're interested, check out the site, fill out the form at the bottom. We'd love to talk to you about how you can join the Living Better Story program.
You know, Chad, what I love about your app, the 77 Pray app, is that in my situation of need, I can get a prayer through to believers, people that believe just like me, and can instantly start praying for me. It's because of the technology you put into place with 77 Pray. How can people listening at home get that app on their phones right now?
It's available on both Google as well as Apple Store. So you visit 77pray.com. It's the number 77pray.com, and or visit the Google Store, the Apple Store. You can download it there. It's $1 a month, and the money goes to great charities. Food for orphans, people who are hungry. They've fed millions of people. And another school in Kenya called the Raja Academy. So those are the first 2 charities that we're helping, and we're going to help a lot more than that.
Wonderful. Hey, before you go, my production team, I've got a top-notch production team. They tell me, rumor has it, you're writing a children's book.
Well, I got to give super credit to Dinosaur House. A guy named Timmy Bauer is the CEO. He was Peter Pan at Disney World, and so he knows a thing or two about kids. And the book, it's kind of funny. So it's called, you ready for it? Oops, I Stepped in My Poop. And the concept is that when my son was about 4 or 5, he actually did that. And he was embarrassed. And so all of us, from time to time,
Right.
step in our poop. So we make decisions that might lead to something. So the book is for kids, and it puts a biblical slant from my grandfather on it. My grandfather gave me a list of 10 things. I'm going to read only 2, and these are the 2 that matter the most. You should love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your might. Number 2, love your neighbor as yourself. If you didn't even have the rest of the 10, those are the 2 that matter the most. And I think this world, if we could just get back to those 2 basics, the world would be a much better place. So, oops, I stepped in my poop from Dinosaur House, coming soon online.
Sounds like a song.
It does. Maybe we need to write the song also.
Chad, before you go, I want to give you your opportunity to speak your message of hope and inspiration to over 200 nations. Take your time, sir.
Look, living a better story is what it says. You're living a good story. What if you could be living a better one? And I believe that the people that I've met, the people who have been on my podcast, man, it's such a great world that we live in. And so at Living a Better Story, we're all about complete your past, tell the truth about your current reality so that you can live a better story. We're opening up chapters all around the country, and we're excited to do that. The first thing that you can do to experience God's love for you and God's miracles, sign up for that, 77pray.com. And we support amazing charities. So foodfororphans.org is one of the charities that we support. They've fed over 9 million kids around the world. And we also support Daraja Academy, an academy for 240 teenage girls in Kenya who wouldn't otherwise be able to go to school. So by signing up for 77 Pray, you're not going to change your life, but you're going to change the life of hundreds, if not millions, of children around the world.
And that's what it's all about.
That's what it's all about.
Chad, we're out of time. Will you come back and see me again?
Oh man, I can't wait for next year because by then we probably have 1 million people on the app and lives are changed. I have one question for you. Will I see you on the 77 Pray app and you have your support?
Where's my phone? Thank you, Chad.
Amen, brother. Big Mike, hit my music.
Hey everybody, TC Bradley, host of God Made Millionaire TV, and I'm honored and privileged to host the hottest show on TV, where each and every Sunday we feature God's people, faith-based entrepreneurs and leaders activating their God-given dream right before your very eyes. I want to encourage you that if you're somebody that God has given a God-given dream, I invite you to come on our set and activate your God-given dreams. Book a call with our producers and walk in your destiny.